Welcome to Rounding Decimals.
Hi, welcome to Math Antics. In this video, we're going to learn about an important math concept called rounding. To help you understand what rounding is, let's think about how numbers are usually used. Most of the time, numbers are used to represent amounts of things, like how many miles it is to the supermarket, or how many days until your birthday, or how many students went to your high school. How many students went to my high school? Oh, about 2,000. Okay, but it wasn't exactly 2,000, was it? Well, no, it was more like 1,900. But it probably wasn't exactly 1,900 either, was it? Well, no, it was more like 1,860. All right, fine. 1,863. See what I did there? At first, the number used to represent the students at high school was a round number. It was a good estimate of how many students there were, but it wasn't exact. The next two numbers were a little closer to the truth, but they were still estimates. Only the final number represented the exact amount of students at the school. All three of the estimates are rounded versions of the exact count, but they have different levels of precision. 1,860 was the most precise estimate, and 2,000 was the least precise estimate. So rounding a number basically means making a less precise version of it. And as you can see, there's usually multiple ways to round a number depending on the level of precision that you need. A really good way to understand what's going on when you round a number is to look at a number line. Here's 1,863. If we want to round it to the nearest 10, we need to decide if it goes up to 1,870 or down to 1,860. But if we want to round it to the nearest 100, we need to decide if it goes up to 1,900 or down to 1,800. And if we want to round it to the nearest 1,000, we need to decide if it goes up to 2,000 or down to 1,000. And in each case, the decision was based on which round number was closer to the original exact number. But you might be wondering, why would we ever want to make a number less precise in the first place? What is rounding good for? Well, rounding numbers can often make them a lot easier to do calculations with. Like, it would be a lot easier to quickly add 300 and 500 than it would be to add 312 and 498. Or sometimes you just don't need very much precision. Like, you might not need to know that your dog weighs 55.83297 kilograms. 55.8 kilograms might be precise enough. Let's try another problem. This one has some decimal digits, 32.725, and we're asked to round it to the nearest whole number. That means our target digit is in the ones place. We need to round it to the nearest one. So any digits to the right of the ones place will just be replaced with zeros in the rounded version. Now, to decide what to do with the target digit, we look at the next digit to the right. Since that digit is a 7, we'll round up this time. That means we'll increase our target digit by 1. And finally, we keep any digits to the left of the target digit the same. In this case, that's just the 3. So we've rounded this number off to 33.000, or just 33, since we don't really need those extra zeros after the decimal point.
Let's try rounding a number to the tenths. Since we are rounding to the tenths place becomes our rounding target. For rounding, I like to use a catchy rhyme. Who's that knocking on my back door? 5 or more, raise the score. 4 or less, leave that mess. Let's start from the beginning of the rhyme. Who's that knocking on my back door? When we look at the number placed behind 6, we see that it is a 5 knocking. So, will a 5 qualify as 4 or less, leave that mess, or 5 or more, raise the score? 5 or more is correct, since the number knocking on the back door is 5. Remember, we're rounding to our target number, so what would 6 rounded up, or raising the score be? The 6 becomes a 7, rounding up 1. The place values to the right of the target number always become zeros, and the numbers to the left of the target number always remain the same. Our new number can be written as 4 and 7/10, since the zeros after the 7 were not giving us any more information about the value. Our final number, rounded to the tenths, is 4 and 7/10. Let's look at another number. This time, we are being asked to round to the ones place. Sometimes, this is also said as round to the nearest whole number. The ones place becomes our target. Using the rhyme we learned before, who's that knocking on my back door? 7 is knocking on my back door. Which category does 7 fall under? 4 or less, leave that mess, or 5 or more, raise the score? 7 is greater than 5, so 5 or more, raise the score. Remember, we're raising, or rounding up, the target number 9. But wait, how do I round up 9? That's the highest number I can fit in the ones. You're exactly right, but rounding up just means counting up by 1, so 1 more than 9 is 10. Which means you will need to add a 1 in the tens place and a 0 in the ones to show 10. All of the numbers to the right of the target number always become 0. And we are left with our final answer of 10. And now, for speed round. This time, we are being asked to round to the hundredths place. The hundredths place becomes our target. Who's that knocking on my back door? 3 is knocking on my back door. Which category does 3 fall under? 4 or less, leave that mess, or 5 or more, raise the score. Since 3 is smaller than 4, it qualifies as 4 or less, leave that mess. Remember, that mess we're talking about is the number in the hundredths place, 3. When we leave the 3 in the hundredths place, 3, it stays the same, and the numbers to the right of it become 0. Our final number can be written as 23 hundredths.
Rule that if the digit to the right of the target is less than 5, we leave the target digit the same. But if it's 5 or more, we increase the target digit by 1, even if that causes a chain reaction with the bigger number places. All right, so now you know a lot about rounding numbers. You know why we round numbers, and you've seen the basic procedure in action. But just watching a video about rounding isn't enough to get really good at it. The only way to do that is to practice. So be sure to try rounding some numbers on your own.
Thanks for rounding with us. See you next time.